Hello and welcome to Wednesdays with Welch. My name is Jim Welch, State Senator for the Hampden District, and Wednesdays with Welch is latest series of informational programming that we're trying to get out on various platforms of social media and bringing in good people in the community that can share with us some tips and share with us information about how, especially right now, how we can kind of get through the unprecedented times that we're facing. Today, we're very fortunate to have Dr. Samuel Headley, who is the professor of exercise science and the director of the exercise physiology program at Springfield College. And Doctor, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And usually at this time, I try and give you a minute or so to just say hello to those that might be watching and maybe talk a little bit about how you got to where you are in your current position.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Yes, I'm the program director for exercise physiology at Springfield College. I've been there since 1992, and it's my responsibility to really see after our doctoral and master's level programs. My background is exercise physiology. And I focus predominantly upon the clinical side of the field as opposed to the sports performance side of the field. So I'm glad to be here today to answer a number of questions with regard to what's going on during the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's great. And again, thank you. It's always nice to have people who have such expertise in the field and obviously are well regarded amongst their peers and amongst those of us are people in Western Massachusetts and come from such a fine institution like Springfield College. So again, thanks for joining us. And I guess we'll get right into it. And, I guess we cut right to the chase since, since the COVID-19 pandemic has started, people have been, obviously, they're been restricted in terms of movements, being able to go to places, go to the gym, go to the park, go anywhere. What is some advice or what are some tips that you can share with people that, maybe they haven't thought of how they can actually be active, but at the same time accomplish what, or be, I guess, respectful of the guidelines that are currently in place?
I'd like to start with saying that, under normal circumstances, we in our society spend between 9 to 11 hours of our waking day being sedentary. Mm-hmm. That has been linked to a number of negative effects, negative physiological and some psychological effects. So now with this pandemic, I can't tell you how many hours per day of our waking time people are being spent sedentary. So that's not good, number one. One of the things that has definitely come up over the years is that we need to be breaking up prolonged periods of sitting, for instance. I'm sure that many of us have been watching television and so on and spend several hours per day in screen time, whether it's a television or a computer. And in many cases, people are sedentary. So one big tip would be to, set a sort of a watch or something, some sort of alarm. Every half an hour or thereabouts, get up and move around. I'm standing right now because, I transitioned to a standing desk type situation. That's one thing if a person has that ability. But every half an hour, get up and move around. I mean, it depends on where you live. If you can go outside, it's fine to go for a little walk and come back for like a 5-minute type breakup. But the big thing is to prevent a person from having prolonged bouts of sitting, uninterrupted sitting, is really detrimental to people's health.
Absolutely. And even if it's just get up, walk to the window, check out what's going on outside, do a couple laps around the kitchen or the stairs or whatever have you, it's better than, obviously if you can get outside and do that, that's great. But just getting up in general, not necessarily walking to the refrigerator and picking out a snack or something like that, but getting up and like you said, long periods of time of just sitting can be very detrimental to one's health. And I think we all, myself included, and I'm trying to, make that point to my kids, 12 and 14 now that, they're not in school, so they're not moving from class to class to class,
Right.
that they have to kind of get up, walk around, be active. Obviously, we want them going outside, riding their bike and doing all that. So that's a great tip. And I think, setting the alarm is probably, even if it's just a little, ding of an alarm on your watch or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
it'll start triggering and people start thinking about, okay, now it's time for me to get up. So, but I mentioned snacks, and now that people, and it's been several months now, or a couple months, people are at home, throughout the day, all day, and that refrigerator doesn't go anywhere. And I see it, my own personal habits in terms of snacking have definitely increased
Mm-hmm.
because,
Mm-hmm.
I've been home more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I certainly see it with my kids, because, before this, I haven't watched them, throughout the entire day. Usually they go to school and for,
Yep.
however many hours of the day they're there. What are some tips around snacking? And, everybody loves to snack. Everyone has different times and places that they like to do it. But what are some tips to do it maybe a little bit more healthy, or, limit it, or, reduce it?
Well, I would say to make sure that you do have healthy available snacks available there so that when the kids, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I found it myself that being at home, my office is in the basement, but I would come up frequently for my little breaks and go into this to the kitchen and get snacks.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing is to make sure that things that are available are nutritious, fruits and vegetables, fruits that the kids will like, vegetables that they will probably snack on and things like that, rather than cookies and donuts and so on. High carbohydrate type snacks, I would say stay away from those high carbohydrate snacks and have what we call nutrient dense things that people can enjoy, that the kids will enjoy and adults can enjoy as well, but also are adding nutritional value to what they're doing.
Right.
What they're consuming, I should say.
And when you talk about nutritional value, I know that we've been trying to do it at my house over the past couple of years. My wife trying to grow, healthy foods in our, I don't know if we could call it a garden, but in our backyard. But not only is that helpful, right, from a sense of trying to grow healthy food, but it's also an activity I think a lot of people have been picking up over the past few months.
Yeah. In other words, what you're saying is that we are trapped in we're trapped. We're now coming out. But I think one good thing would be, from a family point of view, to have projects that perhaps that parents could, if possible, direct your family to be involved with. And one beautiful option is really gardening. To sort of set up, develop a garden, let kids learn where food comes from, how it grows and stuff like that, and doing it as an activity. So you're doing two things. You're doing it as an activity because you got to get out and do some work, physical work, but also that you can then also be teaching them the value of these particular plants that you're growing, and the value from a nutritional point of view of where they come from and so on. So that's a positive thing I see. And there'll be other projects around the house that they can be doing as well to increase their physical activity and also keep the family together at a time like this, which is very difficult.
Yeah, I think, when I have conversations with neighbors and other people, and one of the blessings I think from the situation that we've been in is you're spending so much time with your family that you're doing more coordinated events together, even if it's just around the house. But that's important for mental health and physical health, right? To have those positive interactions with your kids and family members, and it's all very positive. But gardening, I know, I was at, what was I, Home Depot or Lowe's over the weekend, and it's amazing how much, and even the employees at those stores are saying, as soon as they get things on the shelf, they fly off, because people are really taking to that right now, because one, they can get out of the house, do something physical, and it's something to improve their property as well. So very good, great points. And one other thing this is something that I've always struggled with is maintaining a healthy sleep pattern. Definitely going to bed later than I normally do. I try and get up the same time every morning, but with the morning routine, it's getting a little bit back to normal now. But when you don't have the 8 o'clock meeting, in the city, now it's not as you're not as I guess responsible to be in a physical location at any certain time. Sleep. Maybe you steal an extra half hour or an extra 45 minutes of sleep every day. How can that? I mean, is that detrimental? Is it positive? Is it something that you really have to be focused on and really educate yourself to maintain a good positive sleep pattern?
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, last year at the ACSM conference, it was the American College of Sports Medicine. That's the big organization that we sort of work under, or one of them. But there was a whole section on sleep, and it really was driven home the importance of sleep. When we have shortchanged ourselves in terms of sleep, there are several physiological and psychological negative effects. Things, hypertension, cancers, and so on. Different diseases can be developed over time with chronically deprived sleep. So one of the things that I've learned is that, number one, many people have different needs, but from what I read and heard, we all need about at minimum 7 hours of sleep per night. Some people may need a bit more, but about 7 hours of sleep per night, somewhere in that range. Okay, too much sleep isn't good either. If you waste all, and too much is not good. But some things that help would be, in this COVID-19 period, we watch the television, we see the death count rising, we see all the coverage about it. It can become very, very depressing, quite honestly. Okay, so I would suggest at a certain time of the night, turn all the electronics off. You want to create a sort of sleep routine. Turn it all off, including the iPads and all the other stuff. Perhaps get a book or something that one can read and be soothed by. Set up a routine so that whatever time is, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or whatever it is that works for you. But by that time, sort of wind down, turn that stuff off. Don't follow all the stuff that gets you riled up before you go to bed. And seek, again, turn off the lights, create an atmosphere that is conducive to good quality sleep. It's not just the length of the sleep, by the way, it's also the quality of the sleep. And that's an important piece to this whole thing. So the bottom line is that we need to promote that. Young people have a problem with all the electronics. And I've had kids myself. My kids are grown now, but that was an issue. They look at this stuff for hours into the night and play with games and that sort of stuff. It really does some damage in terms of their sleep patterns, and it's not good for them long term. So the bottom line is develop a routine to get to bed by a certain time, and it will take a while. But when you do that, your body gets accustomed to it over a period of time. Your body gets accustomed to it. Also, you might have to watch some of the things you drink and consume prior to that time. Caffeine, for instance, some people may have a real problem with caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant. And then there may be other things that, smoking and so on. So you might have to cut back on that stuff, or don't take your last cup at a certain time of the day, or else you will have problems during the night. So those are some things I would suggest.
Well, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Obviously, getting enough sleep is very important, but getting too much sleep can be just as detrimental. And I always remember, when I think about Tom Brady, and he always, we talk about his physical, his regimen, workout regimen and whatnot, and what he eats. And he always mentions, make sure you get enough sleep. And I'm like, well, that's one thing I can do. I don't know if I can keep up with his physical regimen, but I can get enough sleep. But it's important not to get, you don't want 12 or 15 hours of sleep a night, or even 10, but somewhere between 7, 8 hours of sleep is probably, good, I guess, right?
I've seen up to 9. I think I've seen up to 9. And as I said before, it does vary. Some people, if you speak to people, you'll find that some people say, I need at least 8, or, some people need 9. Some of us are short sleepers. I personally am a short sleeper. So some of us need less. But at one point, I personally used to do 5.5. And then I realized, and I felt good. But then I realized, based on the science, that's called short sleeping. And over time, it's not good. So it is definitely important to encourage people to get to at least 7 is what I've read.
Now, don't want to get too off on this the sleep subject, but I mean, is there anything a tip you could give people? And one thing you do hear from people a lot is, oh, I can only, like you said, I can only sleep for maybe 2 hours at a time, and I'm up, and then, I'm up for an hour or two, and then I try and get another hour. I mean, I know that's, part of health or part of, physiology, I guess. Not being a doctor myself, but are there any tips you can help or provide to people when it comes to that type of situation?
Well, okay, I would say, going back to physical activity, that if people become physically active on a regular basis and increasing, I mean, in other words, including an exercise routine, one of the spin-offs should be better quality sleep. Okay, so that should be that. Now, apart from that, I mean, some of us as we get older, you speak to old men, if you've got prostate issues, you got to go to the bathroom. So that's a factor that needs to be dealt with medically. Right. But apart from that, I would say physical activity, and watch your nutrition, watch the substances you're eating, prior to sleep, and create a sleep routine. And that's the best I think we can do. But as we get older, partly, older people will tell you that, they don't sleep the way that they did when they were younger. Something to note as well, when people are young, it's growth hormone is released during sleep. Growth hormone. So it's really important for young kids to get adequate sleep.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I got to remind my teenagers that adequate sleep means, a reasonable amount of sleep, right? Not necessarily too many hours of sleep a night. But, well, Dr. Headley, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us your expertise. And like during the COVID-19, the lockdown, the shutdowns, people have developed routines and not necessarily the best routines. And I'll speak for myself, but I think your tips in terms of getting into schedules and getting into routines in terms of in regards to your health is very important. So we got about a minute or so left. I don't know if there's just a wrap up that you could maybe provide to anybody who might be watching that maybe is I don't want to say a pep talk, but so people don't worry too much that they're trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I would just reiterate what I said, that during this period of time when we are confined to our homes and social distances and all of that sort of stuff, we need to obey the authorities, number one. But yes, if we can, decrease the amount of sedentary time, decrease the amount of time we are sitting, just watching television or just on the screen, decrease that or break it up, decrease it and break it up if possible. And definitely in terms of nutrition, cut back on the carbohydrates. I mean, I know that some of us love the pastas and stuff, and floury stuff. And for what I can, going to the stores, you can't find flour in some of these stores because people are probably buying them up and using it. Yeah. But there's a need to cut down on the carbohydrates and increase physical activity. And that's what I would end on. Thank you for having me, Senator.
Absolutely. Thanks again for coming on. Thanks for all the work that you do in our community and your work at Springfield College. It's one of the gems of Western Massachusetts, and hopefully, the campus will be back to normal, in the fall. Fingers crossed. I think we're all kind of waiting and waiting to see what happens with college campuses. But again, Dr. Headley, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, Senator.
Take care. Thank you.